Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to get our hands dirty, electronically speaking. We're diving into the guts of a vintage radio to unpack a repair story that's about so much more than just fixing a broken part. It's a fascinating look at clever design, a very, very human mistake, and maybe the lost art of building things that are meant to last. Let's get into it.
All right, let's start with our main character, the Icom IC-736. Now, this beauty came out in the mid-1990s, and for amateur radio folks, it was a big deal. A really highly regarded transceiver, and you gotta love that classic button-heavy 90s look.
So, you might be wondering, why go to all the trouble of repairing a piece of tech that's nearly 30 years old? Well, to get that, we need to see what made this radio such a legend in the first place.
I mean, just look at this feature set for the time. This thing was a totally packed base station. You had 100 watts of power, a power supply, and an antenna tuner that were built right in. And it could even be controlled by a computer, which was pretty slick back then. All that stuff made it a true workhorse for serious hobbyists, especially for what's called DXing, trying to make contact with people on the other side of the planet. But as we all know, even the toughest workhorse can eventually break down.
And this is where our story really kicks off. We're going to follow a specific repair, documented by YouTuber W6EL, that took a very unexpected, and let's just say, dramatic turn.
So, the repair started with a super common problem for electronics from this era. The power supply was just having a hard time starting up. The technician took a look inside and pretty quickly found the culprit, a bad capacitor, component C10, that was literally bulging at the seams. Looked like a pretty straightforward fix, right?
Well, while he was measuring his work, just to double-check that first repair, he made a critical and, in his own words, a silly mistake. And this is that moment where a simple job suddenly becomes a really complex lesson in electronics.
So here's the play-by-play of how one little oversight just snowballed. He was using a handheld oscilloscope, totally normal. But, and this is the key, it was connected by USB to his computer, which was plugged into the wall and grounded. So when he touched the scope's ground probe to the radio's power supply, he accidentally created a direct highway for electricity, straight from the AC power in his wall to the radio's internal ground.
And the result was instantaneous. All that current from the wall outlet had a place to go, and it went there, shorting through the circuit. And a key component, resistor R1, basically sacrificed itself in a flash of light. Pop! That simple repair just got a whole lot more complicated.
But why? I mean, why was that one little touch so catastrophic? To really understand that, we have to look at the really clever, but also kind of sensitive design of this particular power supply. See, the power supply uses this nifty trick called a voltage doubler. For folks in North America using a 120-volt outlet, this circuit very cleverly takes that AC input and basically doubles it to the 240 volts of DC that the radio needs to do its thing. So on the left, you can see the normal, happy path where power is supposed to flow. But now look at the right. You can see how that grounded oscilloscope probe just bypassed all the important stuff and created a dead short, a direct line from the mains power to the internal ground. Not good. And where did all this chaos happen? In a little section of the power supply called the bootstrap circuit. Think of it like the ignition system for the whole power supply. And it's exactly where that originally bad capacitor, C10, was located. So it's a really critical spot for getting the whole system up and running. But here's the twist. This story of failure is also a story of some incredibly smart engineering. That catastrophe could have been so much worse, because it turns out the radio's designers actually planned for a moment just like this one. Remember that resistor, R1, the one that blew up? Well, that wasn't a bug, it was a feature. If you look at the schematics, it's actually labeled as both a resistor and a fuse. It's a special part called a fusible resistor, and its whole job is to act like a bodyguard for the more delicate, more expensive parts of the power supply. When there's a massive surge, it burns out on purpose, breaking the circuit. So, after replacing both the blown-up resistor and that original bad capacitor, the change was just night and day. On the left, you can see that messy, unstable startup voltage from before, and on the right, after the fix, a perfect, smooth, clean startup curve. Just beautiful. Exactly what the designers wanted to see. And the numbers totally back it up. After the repair, the output ripple, which is really just a way to measure unwanted electrical noise, was down to a super clean 25 millivolts. That is the sign of a healthy, stable power supply. The radio was officially back in business. And of course, the power supply isn't the only part of this radio with known issues. I mean, over the last 3 decades, the user community has basically documented a whole list of common quirks and their fixes for everything from audio problems to tuner failures. It's turned this radio into a really well understood and highly repairable machine.
And that kind of brings us to the big picture. This machine from the 90s, with all its known flaws and its really clever fail-safes like that fusible resistor, it was designed to be understood. It was designed to be opened up and repaired, not just tossed in a drawer. So it makes you wonder, in our modern world of sealed-up devices you can't even open, what have we lost by designing things that can't be saved?